Kia ora and welcome to this week's episode of the Niche Cage Variety Show. Coming at you from the big lands, the bad lands of Aotearoa. We are here in honor of Aotearoa and Aotearoa sport. And we have just recorded a fabulous Blackcaps podcast for the Patreon whānau. Also got the Kiwi NRL Spotlight podcast coming on Monday for the Patreon whānau. So big up the Patreon whānau and all their support. Though there are extra podcasts every week on the Patreon feed as well. So if you want to support the Niche Cage directly, head on over to patreon.com/EL Niche Cage for extra podcasts, 2 podcasts a week, Blackcaps, cricket, and Kiwi NRL Spotlight podcast, as well as just the good vibes of supporting all the Niche Cage content. Bit of a warm-up korero here. I just want to throw this out because I think this is going to be helpful for all Kiwi sports fans, particularly Warriors and Blackcaps fans, to help frame their perceptions, thoughts, and ideas in a healthy way. In the email newsletter yesterday, which you can sign up to via Substack, thenichecage.substack.com, every Monday and Friday, lots of Aotearoa sporting information, quicker bits and bobs than our website, theniche-cage.com, bit more current eventy as well, reacting to the weekend on a Monday, previewing the weekend on a Friday. The Monday email newsletter, I dropped some bowler rankings for the Blackcaps, test bowling rankings. Tim Southey, Matt Henry, Kyle Jamieson, Neil Wagner, Blair Tickner, Doug Bracewell, Scott Kugelline, Jacob Duffy, Lockie Ferguson, Henry Shipley, and Ben Lister has been called into the ODI squad, so I'm going to chuck him at the bottom there. So there you go, Blackcaps test bowler rankings. Last week, I also discussed this quartet of Warriors players who I love and I think are going to be highly influential this season. I think they are the best. Yeah, let's go with best. A couple of Aussies are in the mix, but I think these 4 are the best. Shaun Nickel-Klokstad, Te Maire Martin, Marata Niokore, Tohu Harris. The Warriors quartet. The Blackcaps test bowling rankings. One name is missing from each of those groups. Any guesses there, Nico the Wildcard?
Well, I mean, we're talking pace bowlers here, aren't we? Not spinners. So we'll exclude like an Ish Sodhi or an Ajaz Patel or a Mitchell Santner or a Michael Bracewell, the current in vogue fellow. Is a bit of a list there, but I don't, Trent Boult? Where's Trent Boult? What's happened to Trent Boult? Oh wait, we know what's happened to Trent Boult. I also noticed there's no Shaun Johnson on your Warriors list though.
Yeah, so it's just for the health of myself, for the health of Kiwi sports fans. Those 2 don't exist. The Blackcaps test bowler rankings don't exist without Trent Boult. Trent Boult is not here. He's not at the party. It's all good because the party's still pretty fun for us. The Warriors quartet of Kiwi NRL players, superstars, exceptional talents, internationals, Aotearoa Kiwis representatives, Niokore, Nickel-Klokstad, they've also played for the Cook Islands. Test footy players for the Warriors. For the health of Warriors fans, don't worry about Shaun Johnson. You do yourself some good not thinking about Shaun Johnson and just focusing your attention elsewhere to some more interesting Warriors pockets. It's not because we hate Shaun Johnson or Trent Boult. They're just not at the party. They're not at this party. And it's all good because there's plenty of fun for us to be had with the Warriors quartet of Kiwi NRL superstars and the Blackcaps test bowling rankings without Trent Boult. Like, it's all good, but for your own sanity, ponder these teams without those players in mind.
Yeah, for different reasons as well, because obviously Trent Boult is not being selected, whereas Shaun Johnson is continuing to play. For Boult, but yeah, the Boult one is frustrating because there's this idea that maybe he could be selected because he's not retired, he's just sort of stepped away. But that's like an in-between gray area to be living in, and that's not a very fun place to be, where you're sort of like there's no clarity, there's no definition one way or the other. You're just sort of stuck in between. Um, for some reason in my head, I had like an image of the old Pong game with the original computer game thing with the two little bars and the ball bouncing back and forth. I had an image of that. It's like, here's Trent Boult playing, here's Trent Boult not playing, and then there's just a little ding, 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 ding back and forth.
The
You don't
same
want to
thing
be
for
that
Shaun
ping pong
Johnson.
ball. It's the same thing in a different way, yeah. Where it's like, well, with Shaun Johnson, I think what gets frustrating is it's just like, because both of them are in this situation with their lightning rod things for attention. It's like they're the first example people will come to, and just whenever that's the case, I find myself being like, okay, but what else is there? But maybe it's just because I'm a little bit of a contrarian in the first place. But it's just like when all the attention is focused on this one thing, and there's so many issues I see around the world with this same thing. It's like people hone in on these one ideas. It's like, okay, but like the world is big and beautiful, and these are team sports we're talking about. Like, what else is going on? It's surely not just the matter of one person, and focusing on one person becomes kind of insane after a while, really, especially when there's like 12 other dudes out there on the NRL paddock at any possible time for like the Warriors, and there's 10 other dudes, well, 11 other dudes, because Bolt's not there, out there doing their thing for the Blackcaps test team. It's it's never as simple as just one individual.
The Shaun Johnson game of ping pong is more about like Shaun Johnson's the hero.
Mm.
And you're just going back and forth like, oh, he's not. Oh, he's the hero. Oh, he's not the hero. He is the hero. He's not the hero. And that's the same as Trent Boult. Is he playing? Is he not going to play? Do yourself a favor. Calm down, look elsewhere, and enjoy the teams. We are from the niche case, the niche-case.com. Done a Patreon shout out, done the Substack shout out. That test bowler rankings did appear in the Monday email dispatch, so sign up for that for more Aotearoa sport. Big up the website, the niche-case.com. Got a big Blackcaps first test against Sri Lanka review. Going to do a Hayes Perham Kiwi NRL spotlight tomorrow as well, playing fullback for the Doggies. You have a Flying Kiwis yarn coming up? Anything else?
Yeah, better believe that. Flying Kiwis is coming up. We'll see. I do have a Wellington Phoenix one I want to write, which I will hopefully get around to this week. Oh, there's a few other things on the agenda, but I don't want to oversell myself in case I don't get around to them. But did just do a Charlie's Ledger Walker thing last week, which will certainly be back in the rotation because it's I think it was Selection Sunday and yesterday, and so they found out who they're going to play, and I will definitely, probably more an email thing, definitely have a, if I can find it, a wrap up of the Kiwis doing the March Madness activities coming up, because I think that starts this weekend. It's I don't know about you, but I found last week was just like this. The weekend that's just gone was absolutely stacked with Kiwi sports. It was just, there was so much going on where it felt like I normally try to ease off a little bit on the weekend and just clear my head. It felt like I was just working the whole way through because it was sport on from like dawn till dusk, but great sport as well. So there's no shortage of stuff to write about, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't see Charlie's Ledger Walker mentioned on the Sports Center segment for the women's tournament, which was fantastic because obviously no Kiwi is ever going to be mentioned in those realms.
Clay Thompson gave her a shout out though.
He did indeed. Mindfulness, what do you got? Make it crisp, quick, clear, concise.
I've got I think I did one from Homer's Iliad the other week, but I've got another one here, and I think I might actually read that because I keep I'm reading a different book about the Troy, the what do they call it, the Trojan War, and it's fine. Story's great. I kind of just want it with the poetry though. So here's a bit of that poetry from Homer, the original Homer. It is not possible to fight beyond your strength, even if you strive. Always nice to keep that kind of thing in mind. We do have limitations. We are humans after all, you know? Even Achilles had his limitations.
Love it. Let's start off with our headline banger segment, and I'm going to get this party started without Trent Boult or Shaun Johnson, and draw a common thread between the Blackcaps and the Warriors, because the Warriors, I thought they had an impressive loss against the Roosters, and I talked about this for the Kiwi NRL Spotlight podcast for the Patreon whānau. The Warriors were in a very gritty encounter with the Roosters, but the Warriors are more similar to the Sri Lanka Test cricket team, and the Blackcaps Test cricket team are more similar to the Roosters NRL team. Roosters and Blackcaps Test cricket team, they know how to get the job done. They know how to show up in a niggly patch and perform. Blackcaps were under the pump against Sri Lanka, but they kept finding a way to get it back into a position of strength. In that NRL game between the Roosters and Warriors, Roosters were under the pump. They were down a couple of players. They were in a gritty battle with the Warriors, but the Warriors, like Sri Lanka, still feel like they are learning how to win those type of games. And I think we all think Sri Lanka were quite impressive in their loss to the Blackcaps. And I also think the Warriors were quite impressive in their loss to the Roosters. But when you're coming up against the Blackcaps Test cricket team in New Zealand and any game against the Roosters, you need to be firing on all cylinders for 80 minutes. And it's really hard to do. And there's no shame in not doing that against teams that know how to do it really well. Once again, Sri Lanka were quite impressive in losing to the Blackcaps, and I think the Warriors were quite impressive in losing to the Roosters. But that is to say, the Blackcaps Test cricket team, they're the Roosters. And I'm feeling pretty good about that one because they know how to get the job done. What's your leading banger take segment? Headline, whopper.
Well, I have a sneaky suspicion that we may have just witnessed, buried in amongst that absolutely stacked weekend of Kiwi sports, maybe the best ever weekend of Wellington Phoenix footy. Certainly the women's team had their best result. 1-0 away to Sydney, bottom of the ladder team, beating the top of the ladder team thanks to a Kate Taylor goal in the first half. So many times this season, it's felt like the Phoenix women have been close but not close enough. They're so often on the wrong side of these 1-0 defeats. But here against an admittedly weakened Sydney team, I don't know, they battled like champs for 94 minutes to get the clean sheet, get the victory. A few clever tactical adjustments from a couple of weeks back when they did lose 1-0 to Sydney at, I think that game was actually at Eden Park. They had Paige Satchel starting in this one, just bringing some of that chaos from the start. Bit of pace and behind. You had Betsy Hassett, who didn't play the Eden Park one, obviously making a very classy impact and just making the difference that she always does. Emma Ralston starting up front instead of Ava Pritchard, I think was an adjustment I've been waiting a couple of weeks to see, but it was probably a bit more about like until Rollo was fit and ready to do so, and I thought she made a nice impact. In the heat as well in Sydney, no dramas. Subs made an impact as well. It's just this is what it is. This is what you got to do. And that's how you get victories away from home. And what this means is that the Phoenix women are only 1 point behind the Newcastle Jets now. There are 4 matches left to play, and one of them is against the Newcastle Jets, who, let me just say, have been kind of awful lately. Like the Phoenix could legitimately go into that game, beat the Newcastle Jets, avoid the wooden spoon, avoid backing up as wooden spooners in 2 consecutive seasons. Like that's there well within their not just within their capabilities, but I think that probably within their expectations now at this point, given the improvements we've seen over the course of the season. Also can't sleep on the news last week that there's going to be a women's Phoenix team in the next National League, also part of the big week for the club. Some of those women's National League changes I found a little bit, I don't know, tad questionable as always, but the inclusion of the Phoenix reserve side, just like the Blokes have, absolutely massive, enormous for the club, enormous for the sport. That's great news. As for the Blokes, they also beat Sydney 1-0. Did the double. The club did the double over Sydney FC. Ugly game at times, scrappy game at times. Yet another game in which the next Blokes took an early-ish lead and just didn't kick on, like just stuck with that one goal, absolutely chewing through nails and Saturday and on Sunday, watching Phoenix teams not score that second goal that would have made those victories so much more comfortable, but so it goes. Important thing was that the Blokes, they survived for the dub as well, and guess what? They're now only goal difference, they're in 5th place as it stands, but they're only goal difference off of 3rd, and they're only 3 points behind 2nd place Adelaide. Their best ever finish, 3rd place in Uffy's first season in charge. I mean, it's getting a finals victory that's the main priority, but there's also this opportunity here where both Wellington Phoenix teams could be in store for record league finishes. And since this is the hot take segment, I'm going to say that both Phoenix teams are going to get record league finishes. I think that the women are definitely going to edge their way above Newcastle Jets, and I think that the blokes are a very good shout. And certainly, I'm willing to bet on them. I'm going to sit here and bet on them doing so to get at least third, if not second, on the table.
Let's get statistical. And I've been fascinated by the ascension, the rise of Maddy Green as a White Ferns cricketer and just a general cricketer, because she's been playing in the Women's Big Bash League and dominating all women's cricket in Aotearoa. She had a big knock in the... She basically won Wellington the HBJ Shield final, and then she backed that up with a knock of 59 of 49 balls in one of these T20 series, the North versus South T20 series, which her North team won both games played, because the third game wasn't played. She didn't bat in the first game. She did bat in the second game, 59 of 49. And this fits into her ascension as a White Ferns batter. I've got Maddy Green as part of the big four for the White Ferns now. And there's two ways to slice this. In T20 cricket, Maddy Green averaged below 16 in 8 consecutive years of ODI batting. T20 batting, sorry. Now she is in her second consecutive year averaging over 30, and two of her highest 2 strike rates per year have been in these last 2 years averaging over 30. So she's had her highest averages and highest strike rates in T20 batting of her career. In ODI batting, all you need to know about Maddy Green's ODI batting is that she has hit 3 scores over 50 last year. That is the same number of 50-plus scores as she hit in the 8 years prior. So T20 batting, she's got her highest averages and highest strike rates in the last 2 years. So that's T20 batting. In ODI batting, she has hit 3 scores over 50 last year, and that's the same number of 50-plus scores as her entire 8 years prior. Not to mention, her best WBBL campaign was last season, and then she dominated domestic cricket as well, and now she dominated her 1 appearance for the North vs South T20 series. Big up Maddy Green, certified member of the White Ferns Big Four batting unit. Your statistic?
Yeah, well, I know you like a nice, concise statistic, so you'll enjoy this week's offering. The football Ferns, as we know, been going through a few struggles preparing for their co-hosted World Cup in about 5 months. Football Ferns' last 5 games, they've scored 0 goals. No goals in any of their last 5 games. They've lost them all, unfortunately. All Whites, the men's national team, have games against China coming up next week. 2 games, one in Auckland and one in Wellington. The All Whites' last 5 international games, they've scored 0 goals. So neither of our senior national football teams have scored a goal in either of their last 5 games, and I'm not going to try to explain that or even attempt to. I'm just going to let that stat simmer. Neither of them have scored a goal in any of their last 5 games.
Beauty. And I like that because you did keep it crisp and concise, and there's plenty of nuance that people can look into at the Niche Cage for more information. You've got an All Whites squad yarn up on the website now. You've also got some deep dives into what's happening with the football Ferns, so check that out on our website, theniche-cage.com. Deep in the mangroves, we have come across our homies, the New Zealand Breakers, because they lost the first game of the weekend against the Sydney Kings in Sydney. They went down 91-68. Then, Sunday evening, as part of this epic sporting weekend, the Breakers defeated Sydney 80-70. And this means that the NBL Finals series is tied at 2-2. Now they go back to Sydney on Wednesday to find a NBL champion. What is your initial thought from that win in Auckland over the Sydney Kings?
Well, I don't know what it's going to mean for game five because game five is just, they could go anywhere. This whole series has gone and like fluctuated throughout. So, no predictions or expectations about game five. I think if you lose in a game like championship game five, so it goes. Like it's unfortunate, but you've come as close as you can get. Like at that point, it could go either way. So you just kind of cop that. But they were at home, the record crowd in attendance, facing elimination. Like they were 2-1 down. Kings had a closeout game effectively, and I thought the Breakers at that moment delivered at a time where other teams might have crumbled and felt like, wow, we won the first game, we let a chance slip by not being able to keep home court advantage after we'd wrestled it back in the second game, and then we got thrashed in the third one. Okay, the series is just heading in one direction. You know, it might have been a crumbling situation. I thought the Breakers used that moment to produce the best performance of their entire playoff run so far, and potentially the best performance of the whole season. And if that's the case, probably the best performance for about 5 seasons because there wasn't much going on before that. And they did it by just doing those same Breakers things that they've done throughout the season, like really doubling down on their defensive things and just locking it down early on, but making a few timely shots this time. Because I think they started very well defensively last game, but they were fouling too much and they weren't scoring. So the pressure very quickly came back upon their shoulders. Whereas here, they did actually spark a little bit of a lead in the start. They were able to make a couple buckets and they were able to really restrict Sydney early on. And then they didn't crumble in the start of the third quarter when Sydney made their own adjustments, as has been happening throughout the series. Like the Breakers were decent enough there, and I mean, they basically they dictated terms in a way. They set things up so that it was the kind of gritty, low scoring defensive outing that they wanted to play, and it led them to victory, and a really impressive victory that sets up a thrilling game five. The thing I've been wondering, and it's definitely the fact I have to ask this is because it's a testament to the Breakers roster having like multiple. I don't think it's that deep. Certainly, their minutes played by their best players are a lot higher than the minutes played by the Sydney players. I think Sydney's bench has been contributing more, whereas the Breakers are finding guys like Repair, Glidden, Verdanovic are really dropping off the end of the minimum minutes as the series has gone on, even more so. Who would you have as the finals MVP so far from the Breakers? Like, should they go on and win, who would you pick? Because I think you can make a case for at least 3 dudes, which is a testament to how good their starting lineup in particular has been.
Are you thinking Barry Brown Jr.,
He's one of them.
Brantley,
He's the second one.
Abercrombie?
I was leaning McDowell White,
Ooh,
who I thought was excellent again in game
yeah.
4. It's superb in game 1, really excellent in game 4, a little bit inconsistent in 2 and 3. So he'd need a strong game. That's why he's 3 out of 3. I think you named them in the exact order I would lean on. But I do agree. You can probably. I think Abercrombie would need to have been more of a scorer for him to be in that consideration. I think he's more the veteran who behind the scenes guy now who helps others do well. But 6 steals in a closeout game.
He basically
is nuts.
accounted for half of Sydney, almost accounted for half of Sydney's turnovers, which for a veteran player who isn't necessarily a defensive maestro, he impacted an NBL Finals game on his home court. Not his home court, because it was at Spark, not necessarily the North Harbour Stadium one.
Close
not
enough.
North Harbour Stadium, but the basketball court on the North Harbour, sorry.
Yeah, NSEC.
Yeah.
Sure Event Center.
He, in his hometown, he was emphatic for the Breakers, and that's a really impressive thing to see from him. I also saw some lineup changes for these second 2 games. The weekend just gone, Rupier dropped out of the starting lineup, replaced by Isaiah Liafa, who was pretty good, I thought. But he played big minutes. So you got this young dude from Wellington who's got to be among the best ballers from Aotearoa for sure. If you're drawing a top top 15-ish for Aotearoa. I think Le'afa's got to be in there. He was on the bench for the first two games, comes into the starting lineup, plays 27 minutes and 24 minutes. So he's getting a better look in games 3 and 4, which is fantastic because he's the second Kiwi in this Breakers starting lineup now. You have Abercrombie, but it was Rupert before. Now he's been replaced by a local dude, Le'afa. And you've also had a slight increase in minutes for Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe played 23 minutes across the first two games. Then he played 30 minutes across the next two games. And again, Rob Lowe, local baller, getting an increased role in the NBL Finals. And I think who knows what's going to happen for this fifth and final. Kick it on the last. Wait and see. But this fifth and final game for the Breakers, it might be a case of like the starters playing 35 minutes each and the bench guys don't have a big role. That's all good because the rotations tighten up in the biggest games. But there's plenty of options. Like Rob Lowe playing more might help counter Sydney's big men. Le'afa playing more, bit more creativity than Rayan Rupert. Old mate Dieng did have a breakout NBA game, former Breakers prospect for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that was good. And I think Rupert is better than him. So that's going to be interesting to track moving forward. But it did seem like Mody Moa did make a few tweaks from the first two games to the next two games. And from my perspective, those tweaks saw increased roles for some Kiwis, which was convenient, but pretty cool.
And effective too, because I think you look at Lowe and Le'afa and think, well, there's many things those guys offer, because Lowe's rebounding it's not amazing for a guy his size, but he is a guy that size, so he's a decent rebounder. And Le'afa's a really good on-ball defender, like really good. And I think to your point about Isaiah Le'afa, I'd almost make the case that he was the best performing New Zealander across the whole of the NBL this season. I mean, there's a couple of, like, because Shea Ely didn't play much, so it's hard to say for a dude who only played half the season. Otherwise, it would have been him, because it's always him now. Sam Wardenberg is the best rookie of the season. They've changed the name of the award, but the Next Generation award winner, he'd be up there. Corey Webster was a little bit slow to start, but when he got going, he was pretty handy for Perth. Like there's a few candidates, but I think Le'afa might be the dude who takes that cake. But Le'afa and Lowe offer 3-point shooting as well, and that was a big difference. I wondered if they might start Barry Brown. They went with Le'afa instead. It was just as effective, and you still get to bring in Barry Brown to be the dude who just shreds stuff at the later on in the first and third quarters, and then he's always going to be on there at the end of the games to score them important. Like his fourth quarter production throughout all of these playoffs has been absolutely nuts. He's a really good player, that dude. We'll just say on Ousmane Dieng's 17-point game, I think it was, breakout, there is an asterisk on what players do for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder in March. Like, we're just to point that we're at the stage in the season where like tanking is prevalent. Therefore, younger prospect players are playing way more minutes than they would ordinarily be playing. That's why he's in the team. It's not because he's been undeniable at G League level, and it's time we can't withhold this guy anymore. We've just got to unleash him upon the NBA. It's more like, well, we don't care if we win anymore because we're trying to get another draft pick. So we drafted you. You're a good player. It's your turn. So it's boosted by that, but still, not everyone can score 17 points in an NBA game. That's for sure. So, and I agree, Rupert is a better player. So that's going to be quite exciting to see where that goes. And if I had to pick a preference, Shaun Marks was down here watching a Breakers game not that long ago, and he would have been keeping a close eye on Rayan Rupert. So wouldn't mind the old the French Nick Star phenomenon finding his way to Brooklyn next season. Throw that out. I don't think that's an impossibility. Any other Breakers points, or should we move on to some questions?
Dieng did score against the Spurs as well, who are also
Who
tanking.
were
So,
tanking even harder than the Thunder.
um, and
Didn't notice that, but
like it's yeah, maybe don't hang your head on these performances because like someone like RJ Hampton isn't exactly a solidified superstar in the NBA either, and um, Dieng is
made for
winning.
about 4 teams already.
Yeah, Dieng is winning tanking performances. So shout out to him. Let's have a question. My question is, what was your favorite one single thing? There was lots. There was lots. One single thing. What was your one single favorite thing from the Blackcaps test match against Sri Lanka?
Well, you're right. We could probably list like 100 different things if we, if we really wanted to, if we wanted to stretch it out. But the single thing for me was just the theater. I'm not even going to say the drama. I'm going to say the theater, like a higher art version. The theater of the final delivery, where you had first of all 2 overs earlier. For sure, he's calling that a wide. Like it was the ball before was over Williamson's head, and they gave it the old one for the over, and then he bowled another one that was just as high. So it should have been a wide, but they don't want to end the game on a wide. Same reason as like NRL referees don't want to give the penalty that Cameron Smith has milked in Golden Point right under the post kind of thing. Like the refs in general don't want to win the game on their decision. I can understand that, and we got a better finish for it. Um, but could have been a wide. They run through. You got Wagner sprinting in with what did he have? Like a busted disc thing slipped in his back, and then he had like a torn hamstring. He's absolutely hooning down. I'm pretty sure he was short of his crease as the keeper threw the stumps down, but missed. So I think that he might have been. I think he probably would have been out if the keeper had hit the first one. Bowler turns. Actually, great fielding from the bowler to field that from a throw at the stumps. It's not like it was tossed in gently to him. To turn, field, hoon it down, hit the stumps, knock him down, but somehow Williamson has snuck through for the single. All the while, you've got Craig McMillan making noises that I don't even know how a human makes those noises. And then he starts yelling about double plays. Like it got so exciting, he thought he was watching baseball instead of cricket for a second there. And then the best part of it, I know how you get this where it's like, oh, no one likes the thing about where the last wicket gets reviewed and we've got to wait to see if it's out or not or whatever. I actually thought the fact they went to the third umpire was incredible because we didn't know the outcome of the game. Sri Lanka was celebrating because they thought they'd run the dude out. Understandably too, like great fielding, it was high quality cricket throughout. And then we don't know the outcome until we start getting the slow motion replay of Williamson's bat creeping over the line. And then you hear Stephen Fleming off mic, but with someone's microphone left on because someone's gone sloppy in the moment. You hear Stephen Fleming go out. Oh, he's out. And then Craig McMillan goes, hold on. No, he's in. He's in. And then McMillan jumps back on the microphone to announce that Williamson has indeed made his career. The whole thing, the theater of it was just insane. And I don't think my heart rate came down for like 3 hours afterwards. And so I'm going to flick the question back on you. What was your favorite moment?
It was a couple moments before that because it was kind of like, okay, we see Neil Wagner's padded up. Don't think like Matt Henry's got stitches on his right hand, which is his bottom hand holding the bat, which is pretty useful and helpful when you are batting. And he's also like his forearm was probably black and blue from earlier in the test where he wore one straight on the forearm. So it's like, what role of Neil Wagner and Matt Henry going to play with the bat? Wicket falls. Matt Henry's like strolling out to the crease, like confidently, I'm a big Donny. I'm going to help my team. And I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Shout out Matt Henry, bro. You're the man. You're the man. Home turf, taking wickets, big runs for Matt Henry as well.
Enormous. He could have been man of the match, really. Like he was the second top wicket taker in each innings and the second top run scorer in the first innings when they overturned what was looking like going to be a deficit. He was huge in this test.
He's got 3 half centuries and a fantastic average at Hagley Oval. So I was like, Matt Henry, like you are exuding confidence that you can get the job done. Like I love it. He gets out. What happens? Neil Wagner sprints to the middle, and that is my single moment. Neil Wagner with a bulging disc, torn hamstring, sprints to the middle as a batter, as if to say, fuck yeah, I'm here. I'm going to get the job done. Of course, he did run the single. He didn't look great running the single. He looked a bit wobbly, and I don't know how many more singles he could have ran. But seeing Neil Wagner, question marks buzzing all around the show. What's going to happen? Is he going to bat? How's he going to bat? He's 37 years old. He's got a bung back. He's got a bung hamstring. Like, what's going on? He sprints to the middle. And I was just, that made the whole test for me. Then obviously the Blackcaps won it, and it was pretty cool. Musical jam. I want to big up a new song from Navy Blue. It's got a new track called Chosen, which is typical mellow navy bluish vibes. And also there was a new track from Hit Boy and The Alchemist, where they, as producers, rap on each other's beats, which was pretty funky to see as well. Your musical jam.
Well, we're finally in release week for the new Unknown Mortal Orchestra album, so that's getting a lot of focus. Sitting there meditating, counting down the days for that one, trying to pass the time. There was a Phaser Days song, sneaky like bonus track from the last EP. That one popped up, is pretty cool. Quite a few good, like Darts have a new song called "Steal from the Supermarket," keeping up their outstanding record of song titles. Rose City Band, American group, got a like psychedelic. It's Ripley Johnson, who's from Wooden Ships, which is a psych rock band from like early 2000s, who are fantastic. But he's got this sort of more country tinged side project called Rose City Band, who never put out a bad song, let alone a bad album. They've got a new one coming up, couple singles from that, heaps going on. But just on Neil Wagner, now that we've done the tunes, all those question marks about Neil Wagner, would he, wouldn't he, how could he? You just know those were question marks that other people had on Neil Wagner, right? Like he knew in his mind there were no question marks. Like I saw him doing that thing where he was stretching with his pads on and like swinging the bat, getting ready to go. And the commentators were still saying, is he going to bat? And I'm thinking, Blair Tickner is probably tied up with rope, gagged in a bathroom stall right now by Neil Wagner to make sure that he does not go. If they had any inclination that Blair Tickner would come in ahead of Neil Wagner would have just like eliminated Blair Tickner from the conversation. Like there was no question in his mind, and there was no question in my mind because I knew there was no question in his mind. But still, the fact he ran out there was absolutely glorious. And how were the Blackcaps ever going to lose from that moment when that was happening, you know?
That's a bit of mindfulness to end. Like, you just want to be Neil Wagner sprinting into like a hostile situation full of mana. Neil Wagner's mana is undeniable. Obviously, like Matt Henry's pretty good as well. So big up yourself, big up Aotearoa. That is the Niche Case Variety Show. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of the Niche Cast. Big up yourself. Stay beautiful. Kia kaha. Chur chur.